What does that even mean? What does it even mean? Hello. So I realized that I can be a little harsh when it comes to criticizing other people's poetry. I have made a lot of videos dragging poets that I think are kind of bad. The main reason that I'm able to identify the mistakes that they're making are because they're mistakes that I have made a million times. So today I'm gonna read you some of my own terrible poetry. I don't claim to be a good writer or a great writer, but one thing that I can say for certain is that I have improved. So these are mostly poems that I wrote in freshman and sophomore year of college, so we're talking 10, 11 years ago, and it's terrible. They're terrible. They're so bad. So without further ado, let's just get into it. Okay, this is a poem called Butterflies. Tiny symmetrical flapping tapestries land on flowers, twitch, depart, tickle noses without knowing they're alive and living art, rustle together, settle in trees, move mathematically like machines. This is a fun one to start with because for a long time I thought this poem was really good. I thought this was really good. So okay, here we have a poem about butterflies and really nothing else. I'm not saying anything interesting about butterflies. They're not being used as a metaphor for any kind of broader significance. It's literally just a description of butterflies. The only even somewhat interesting thing I say about it is that they're living art, but comparing an animal to art or some part of nature to art is really not original at all. In fact, it's pretty much a cliche. I would say that that's a cliche. And a problem that you're going to see throughout all these poems is I'm so focused on the language and doing things that I think sound cool with little rhymes and attention to sound and stuff like that, but it's not in service of any interesting meaning. In fact, it feels really, really forced. In particular, that first line is really irking me. Tiny symmetrical flapping tapestries. We've got a bit of an adjective soup going on. This is a general problem that I would identify in myself and some other amateur poets is an overemphasis on adjectives, thinking that lots and lots of adjectives are going to pull a lot of weight for you descriptively. Really, I think you'd be better off focusing on specificity and using really specific, good, interesting nouns and verbs especially. And what makes an adjective interesting is not just that it sounds cool, and I definitely don't think you need to be using many adjectives in a row. Tiny, symmetrical, flapping, that's 3 adjectives in a row, that's too many. And none of them are very interesting. An example of a great adjective in a poem I read recently, someone used the word serrated to describe the shore. They described the serrated ocean, the serrated coast. And that's a great adjective to use in a poem because it's unique. You usually hear the word serrated used to describe a knife, but the shape of a serrated knife is similar to that of the shore or the coast, but you don't usually think of it that way. The poet is using an unusual, unexpected adjective. I think that's the best way to use adjectives in poetry. Certainly not these really boring, rote ones. It's adjective soup. So yeah, that's the main thing I have to say about this. Also, tickle noses without knowing. I was just too tempted by these rhymes that are not interesting, that feel really forced, that feel really cheesy. Next poem is called Woods. Great title, first of all. I am one of the lucky ones for whom living is not a goal, but just a part of life. I have time to sit under trees and use the paper they give me to write about them. Relax and float downstream of consciousness, river of thought, blue, shimmering, watery words, sipped and splashed by talkative birds, painted leaves and papered dreams are all I see under these brown bark beams. Oh, it's just so bad. It's just so bad. So I think in the first couple lines what I'm trying to say is that I don't have to focus too hard on survival because I'm lucky, yada yada yada, that's not very interesting. I sit under the trees and use the paper. Okay, whatever, it's just not very interesting. And then float downstream of consciousness. Again, I'm just too focused on what seems like clever use of language, but it feels really forced. It feels like it's not in service of any interesting meaning. And then again, we get some real adjective soup going on. Blue, shimmering, watery words. Why did I love to use 3 adjectives in a row? That's too many. Sipped and splashed by talkative birds. I mean, there's like a little bit of rhythm going on, but it feels really cheesy. Finally, brown bark beams is just really stupid. I mean, okay, it's alliteration and it's rhyme. It's also just a really dumb way to describe trees. Like, no one would say that. It feels really forced. And once again, cheesy. I'm trying too hard. I'm obviously trying too hard. Okay, this one's even worse. This might be the worst one in the bunch. I don't know. It's hard to say. They're all really bad. Okay, it's called I Want to Keep You Unkempt. Right away, even in the title. Keep unkempt. Is that clever? Sort of, I guess. But is it worth using just because it's clever? No. The stale smell of spilt Chardonnay. Does it really smell stale? Okay. The stale smell of spilt Chardonnay, sentimental shards of green glass, inconsiderately scattered ash, don't bother me. Faint fatigue, unfinished dreams, slight shame, and a smile are prison barred behind playful fingers. How did we get so beat up? It's really a rather funny story you don't remember. It began with wine and ended with a decision. Talk about vague. Like, what am I actually trying to say? This first stanza, again, something that I probably thought was so good. Stale smell of spilled Chardonnay, sentimental shards of green glass. There are certain words that poets just love to overuse. I feel like shards is probably one of them. Even just glass. You know, they're words that sound nice, but do I really need to be using them? And it's focus on sound gone too far. And yeah, it's just not good. It's just not good. The only thing even at all cool might be the phrase prison barred. Like, I'm trying to describe like a person like kind of covering their laugh. That's almost interesting. That's the only compliment I can really give myself here. Here's another incredibly terrible poem called Let's Get Serious for a Second. Just remember, I am 18, okay? 18. That's no excuse. There are amazing young poets. I was not one of them. My mistakes are verbal. My regrets are footprints. Alarm clocks, adherence, education. These people are a genre I've never read. A punk sunset, unsettled, tattooed clouds, careless, attractive, loud. All of my favorite people can never find their keys. When I reflect on youth, it will be the pauses I'll miss, the opening and closing of doors to thought, punctuated by what we've lost, misplaced, the rooms we pace in foreign spaces. Let's get serious for a second. Okay, these line breaks are just awful. My mistakes are verbal. It's just, I'm trying to say things in a unique way, but it just comes across as weird. My regrets are footprints. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? What does it even mean? Alarm clocks, adherence, education, vague. Vague. Be specific. What are you talking about? A punk sunset? I mean, ugh. I'm trying to do things with sound. I'm trying to use an unusual, unexpected adjective. Like I said earlier, I think I must have learned, like, I get it, that's what's cool about good poetry, but I couldn't, like, actually do it. Because that's just not, like the serrated coast example. It's unusual, but it makes sense. This is unusual, and it doesn't make sense. Next one, it's called Treasure. Fake gift shop treasure chest, burned red and yellow between false bronze and metal, rusted, inside and under the scratched, indented pink clay. She loved it because she found it. There's hundreds just like this one in children's rooms, gift shops, park trails, landfills, miniature memories. So this just isn't very interesting. It's just really not. It's literally a description of this tiny treasure chest thing that I have. She loved it because she found it. Really vague. Found it where? Found it when? Why did that make her love it, you know? Who is she? I kind of like false bronze. That's like almost cool, sort of. I don't really know what's significant about like the fact that there's hundreds of this little thing. Is that interesting? I would have to have said a lot more about it to make it interesting. There's just not enough going on here. Real common theme with these poems. There's just not enough happening. There's not enough significance. This is not fun for me. I hope it's fun for you. This is not fun for me. Who domesticated me? That sound, a baby or a cat? Other people, they're everywhere. Crickets and cicadas buzz at night. Earplugs absorb the symphony. White ceiling blankets the stars. Where have I been all summer? Engulfed in the motion of emotion, twitching at every stranger's stirring, staring out my window, trapped. This one I have to admit I wrote somewhat more recently. It was still like 8 years ago, but it wasn't freshman year of college. You know, it was a bit older, and I do think it's a bit better. What's the point here? I'm trapped like a cat. I'm domesticated. The speaker, I'm not even gonna pretend it's not me. The speaker feels trapped like a cat. Okay. I kind of like the line, other people, they're everywhere. It's very vague, but like, I do kind of like it. Everybody loves writing about cicadas. It's just a beautiful word. It's too easy, you know? Earplugs absorb the symphony. That's kind of a nice verb. You know, I'm getting a little better with my use of verbs, but I'm still relying way too heavily on adjectives. And of course, the motion of emotion. I just can't stop with the stupid rhymes that like aren't interesting, that feel forced. Like, it's like they tempt you. When you're a new poet, you're tempted and you think, oh, this will be cool, this would be impressive. When in doubt, don't rhyme. And I'm not saying that because rhyme isn't a useful technique, it's just that it really shows your amateurism if you don't know how to use it well. You'd be better off just not even trying. Okay, so that poem sucked. Here we go. We're getting into more things I wrote not quite as long ago, but still quite a long time ago. This one's called L. E-L-L-E. He felt left out at the party. His idea of Ivy League conversation burst like the carbonation in his drink, with one too many woohoos bouncing off the walls. He decided to steal the L out of their encyclopedia. That'll show 'em. What will they do without lithium? How far will they get without Lennon or Lindsay Lohan? Sober by morning, he knew it was the elusive girl in the lace dress that made him loot the last of the L's. He wanted to tell her she looked lovely, but she left, her dress swooshing behind her. Once again, terrible line breaks. Her dress swooshing behind her? You really, that's your final line? That's where you're gonna leave us? With the words behind her? No. I think it's kind of funny the way I wrote Lennon or Lindsay Lohan. I think that's kind of funny, but kind of funny does not make a poem. The first line is he felt left out of the party, and then I felt the need to have a full stanza break. Why? What is this poem about? It's about a person, he goes to a party, he is pretentious, he doesn't like the conversation that's going on, he finds a woman attractive, doesn't get a chance to talk to her, it makes him mad, and then he steals one of their books. Like, I hate this person that I've written about. Who is it? It's not me, for the record. Not a real person. I made this up. I was trying to use a lot of L's, which is I guess why I titled this L, but like, who's that? Is that the name of the woman at the party? He didn't get introduced to her. There's no believability here. And I think that matters because this feels like a realistic story. It feels like a story, it feels like a real thing. So then you can't set us up with this realistic atmosphere and write something completely unbelievable. Okay, this is the final one I'm gonna read. I wrote this only just like a few years ago, but it still sucks. And it was just one of those poems that was unsalvageable. You know, I tried to revise it and I just couldn't because there's nothing here. There's nothing here. It's called Shifting Trends in the Landscape of Violence. It's no surprise that these documentaries don't end well. Studs Terkel said, "What is considered newsworthy is that which seldom happens. No need to shed light on light itself. Thus we've stopped televising each and every little mass shooting. Our availability heuristic refuses to listen to statistics. Serial killing is dying out, along with well-crafted letters. Arsenic in the mail. Purchasing an assault rifle is the quickest way to fame. No need to carve your name in someone's skin. These manifestos written in binary shine with blue light now, not blood." So you can see, I feel like this is a little better. Like, some improvements have been made. I'm falling into bad habits though. I'm falling into bad patterns from my past. Like, why have I started once again using really forced, boring rhymes? But I think the real problem with this poem is it seems like I am feeling like nostalgic towards serial killers, and that's not what I meant. Like, oh, remember the good old days before mass shootings and we had serial killers? Like, I'm trying to make some sort of comment on that shift, but I feel like this is a topic better suited for an essay. Like I tried to write a poem about this, but this is a topic where I would want to be really, really clear about what I mean. And I think poems can be easily misinterpreted, and I wouldn't want to risk misinterpretation here. Like what I'm trying to say is like, it's not true that we've stopped televising each and every little mass shooting, but you know, from the logic of news being that which seldom happens, I guess at a certain point we would stop televising even something as horrifying as a mass shooting because it just becomes every day. I'm trying to make some sort of commentary on that, but it's not very clear. And what I said, our availability heuristic refuses to listen to statistics. I'm trying to say something about the fact that like when you see something on the news all the time, you think that it's really, really common, but it's not. Like kidnapping is not common, right? Heart attacks are common, but we don't have news stories about heart attacks. We have news stories about kidnapping because it's just, quite frankly, more interesting to people. So again, I had actual stuff to say here, but I don't think a poem was the right way to say it. So those are my terrible poems. I think that I have improved. If you would like to see for yourself whether I've improved, I have a chapbook which you can buy, and I also have a Patreon page. These are both linked in the description below this video, and I post about 2 poems a month on my Patreon if you're interested in seeing what I've been writing more recently. How I have grown from my horrible habits of adjective soup, unnecessary rhymes, and just generally not saying anything of interest at all. And again, point being, I can dish it out, but I can also take it. I have written some of the worst poems I think you'll ever read. And you know, these weren't even the worst of them. This was college, you know? What was I writing in high school? Junior high? But I'm not digging that stuff out for free. Thanks for watching. Bye.